Welcome to Go Green Radio, everybody. I am so excited that you could tune in today because today you're just going to have me, no guests. Normally, that's how we do things, but today it's just going to be me. I'm going to be talking about a new program that my nonprofit organization, the Go Green Initiative, is working on. And we're really, really excited to be part of a historic national investment in indoor air quality for schools. As I've talked about in previous episodes, my organization, the Go Green Initiative, has been around since 2002. And our primary focus is K through 12 schools in the US, though we do work with a lot of school districts all over the world who find us on the internet and use a lot of our tools and training to do things on their own. But one of the things that has always been at the center of our mission with the Go Green Initiative is to protect children's health from environmental pollutants and contaminants while they're at school. And so indoor air quality is a big component of that work. However, up until very recently, there just hasn't been a lot of money to do that, a lot of funding to staff up, a lot of funding to create the kind of tools that school districts need to work on indoor air quality. But that has changed, thankfully. Just last year, there was a grant opportunity offered through EPA. Congress made a historic investment in improving indoor air quality for schools, and they allocated $32 million to be used to help substantively and measurably improve indoor air quality in schools. Today, we're going to talk about why indoor air quality is a big issue in schools, what school districts can do, and even further, what my organization, the Go Green Initiative, is doing because we were one of the grant recipients. When this grant notice of funding went out, I contacted our good partners, the National School Boards Association, and we have been partnered with them since 2005, so 20 years now. And they have the ability to reach into every school district in America, school board members, superintendents, school business officers, that's essentially the chief financial officer of a school district, all pay attention to the NSBA's outreach, their offerings, their trainings, their convenings. And so they were the perfect partner for us. And as I was writing the grant, I worked very closely with the leadership team at NSBA. And so I'm excited to talk to you about what we have planned and what we're going to be doing to help school districts in a very hands-on way. But first, I want to talk about what we know about indoor air quality in schools and why we care about it. Why is this a problem? And I will tell you that EPA has been working on this for upwards of 30 years. And there are some real heroes who have put together materials that if school districts had the bandwidth and the staff allocation, they could take those tools and do this on their own. But we know that about only half or maybe less of school districts across the country actually have indoor air quality management plans. So we're going to talk about why indoor air quality is a problem. And we're going to start with, letting you know that everything I'm about to tell you is something that if you want more information, you can reach out to me through our website, gogreeninitiative.org, and ask for the research that's behind this. Everything I'm about to explain has been well researched over the last few decades, and the science is is unambiguous. We've got a problem. So we also rely on the American Academy of Pediatrics. They have a lot of research on this. And one of the things that EPA knows is that, yes, outdoor air quality is a problem. We've been regulating it for decades, pretty much my entire life, and I'm not young. We have been regulating outdoor air quality, but EPA has known and has been telling us that indoor air quality can be anywhere from 2 to 5 times more toxic to our health than outdoor air quality. And sometimes, in some spaces, it can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air quality. And so when we talk about the components of indoor air quality. We're talking about three main areas. We're talking about controlling airborne pollutants. We're talking about the introduction and distribution of adequate outdoor air, so that's ventilation. And we're talking about maintenance of acceptable temperature and humidity. And I don't want to hear it from all my old school listeners who are like, back in my day, we went to school and it was 100 degrees outside and 99.9% humidity. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but the point is we know better and we need to do better. Temperature and humidity can really have not just a discomfort impact, but they can actually have a poor health impact. And one of the things that we know about temperature and humidity, first of all, high temperatures in a classroom or a learning environment can actually cause heart rate problems. That can cause tachycardia, which is a high heart rate. It can cause, of course, sweating, but it can cause some cognitive issues that we'll talk about in just a little bit. And so high temperatures in a classroom can really stress the body. And this can happen, some of our school buildings are still very old and they don't have central heating and air conditioning. They have natural ventilation. But it isn't just a school district's ventilation problems that can cause high temperature and humidity. Sometimes it's the building's envelope. What do I mean by that? The walls, the windows, the doors, the roof, the foundation. If the building envelope itself is not sound, even if you've got great HVAC systems, you can still have problems with temperature and humidity due to, a leaky building envelope. So let's talk about some of the biological contaminants that we find in school indoor air quality. Some of these are things you know about, like mold. Some of them are things like dust mites, pet dander that even come in on people's clothing, coming in from home. Pest droppings, and by that I mean a lot of times bugs, cockroaches, etc. Some biological contaminants can be viruses and bacteria. We know all about that. Every flu season, we have indoor air quality problems in schools because we're passing it around. One of the issues with biological contaminants in indoor air quality is that some of the particles are so small that they can be inhaled very, very deeply into the lungs, more deeply than other particles. And this can really lead to increased respiratory system symptoms and more frequent illnesses. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but higher rates of absenteeism. So let's talk about mold for a second. So, bottom line, I'm bottom lining this. Mold accumulates in schools from poor ventilation processes. And that's true whether it's a centrally heated and locate and air conditioned space or natural ventilation. And the only way to know if your classroom area is properly ventilated, dehumidified, is to test it. And to take a look and see if you have any problems based on some testing. Dust mites are another biological contaminant. Can come in from cat and dog hair from home. Can come in, like I said, from cockroaches. There have been several studies that have been done on these particular contaminants in schools. And some of these studies have found that up to 83% of classrooms have these allergens. Dust mite allergens were found in 51% of classrooms in these studies. Mouse allergens were found in 45% of classrooms. So this is not nothing, folks. We've got some issues. And part of what we do to address these, of course, is through keeping things clean, but also looking at some of the contaminants that we might be bringing in from the outside. And a lot of the focus that we are going to be helping schools with is preventing contaminants from coming in. Sometimes, we hear a lot about monitoring and technological advances to help with indoor air quality in schools, and there's a lot of room for those kinds of solutions, but there's just no substitute for prevention and keeping these contaminations out to begin with. One of the things that we talk about with school districts a lot when it comes to, these pest problems is having an integrated pest management system. And that reduces the kind of chemicals. You don't just go around and spray for everything and then introduce those toxic chemicals meant to kill bugs, which, oh, by the way, also harm human health, to all the adults and kids in the space. Integrated pest management systems have been around for decades. It's not new, it's not untested, it's very well tested. And most state departments of health have information on integrated pest management systems on their websites. But in a little bit, I'm going to direct you to the EPA's resources. They have a website that has all kinds of information about integrated pest management systems. I want to talk a bit for a second about microorganisms. These are things like microbes, fungi, algae, mites, insect and animal debris, and some of their byproducts. And by that, I'm talking about feces. Yep, it happens in schools. These microorganisms can cause upper and lower airway inflammation. They can cause asthma symptoms, of course. But one of the big things that a lot of folks don't realize is that these can actually cause decreased lung function. And so, one of the things that there was a study done by the School Intercity Asthma Study, and they revealed that mouse allergen levels in classrooms were often higher than in students' homes. So, this is something that we're routinely seeing in a lot of schools, not just urban school districts. I mean, mice are everywhere in rural areas too. They can be in the suburbs. So this is not just an urban school district impact, but some of these biocontaminants can have long-lasting health implications. And that's something that we're going to talk a little bit about in the next segment is the so what of it all. So we have all of these chemicals and various gases like carbon dioxide and others, radon gas, mercury vapor, some of the gases that can be a part of indoor air quality. But what's the so what of it all? How does it impact children's health? And maybe even more, salient to what we're talking about today, but how does it impact their cognitive ability? How does it impact their ability to learn, which is the whole reason that they're in school to begin with? We can't forget to talk about lead and asbestos, even though, there have been regulations on the books for years about introducing these into schools. Guess what? A whole lot of our schools, the overwhelming majority of our schools, were built before those regulations. And we have not successfully removed all of the lead and all of the asbestos from all of our schools. And so this is something that we still need to be concerned with. There are chemical pollutants that I won't touch on in depth, but I will say there are a lot of persistent bioaccumulative toxic substances that are being introduced into schools. And again, I'm going to direct you to the EPA's website in just a moment, where you can read about these. But one of the problems with PBTs is that they build up in the body. So when we expose children to these chemicals, they don't just flush out next time they drink water and go to the bathroom. No, they build up in their soft tissue and can cause lifelong health problems, which we're going to talk about in the next segment. So don't go away, folks. There's more Go Green Radio right after this. Welcome back to Go Green Radio. So glad that you could tune in, everybody, because we're talking about something that is near and dear to my heart. Let me tell you why indoor air quality in schools is so personal for me. It's actually one of the on-ramps for me in even being involved in sustainability in schools. As I've mentioned before on Go Green Radio, my first job out of college was in the Navy. I was a naval officer stationed in San Diego, rough duty station, by the way, just really harsh. Um, no, it was a beautiful place, a wonderful place to be stationed in the Navy. And, you know, I never in a million years would have imagined myself doing what I've been doing since 2002, since I founded the Go Green Initiative, and that's working on sustainability and healthy school learning environments. But my youngest child, who is now 26, when she started preschool, she started having horrible, and I mean violent asthma attacks. And nobody in our family had ever had asthma. So this was really new to me and new to my family. And we really had a hard time figuring out what was going on because, I mean, we had to rush her to the emergency room. It was horrifying, honestly. Her little face would turn purple and she would just be desperately gasping for little sips of air. And even when we got her on daily nebulizer treatments, that wasn't enough to keep her out of the emergency room. And as I, started doing more and more research, I realized that millions of children and their families are dealing with this same sort of thing. And after quite a while and lots of testing and trying to figure out what was going on, we realized that there were chemicals she was being exposed to at a preschool that were causing these triggers, were triggering her asthma and causing her to have symptoms, not just while she was at school, but at home as well. And of course, we did a lot of things at home to, make the indoor air quality safe for her, but we had very little control over what was going on at school. And so that really led me to look at what I might be able to do to be able to be helpful to schools who want to deal with this, but maybe, are understaffed and overwhelmed as they always are, always stretched thin. And that was really why I got into this work to begin with. Um, the impact of indoor air quality at schools on children's health is no joke. And if you haven't seen an asthma attack happen, if you don't know one of the 6.6 million children in America who suffer with this, God bless you. But let me help you understand why this is something that we need to address. First of all, it is preventable. It is something that we can do something about. It's not a foregone conclusion. But the other thing is that it doesn't just impact kids while they're at school. And that's what I really want to get across. The other thing I want to get across is that children are not just little adults. The EPA has been saying this for years, and it's so true. One of the things that we know about kids is that their bodies are still developing, and when they're exposed to certain toxins, especially in the air, their bodies can't handle it the same way that adult bodies can. First of all, when they breathe, they take more frequent, rapid, and deep breaths relative to their body size. Their developing organ systems and lung capacity is different than adults. Their immune systems and their bodily defenses are not fully developed. I mean, their respiratory systems, including their nasal passages, are just simply less efficient at filtering harmful particles and gases compared to adults. So while we talk about indoor air quality at schools, yes, absolutely. I stipulate that teachers and other adults at schools are being impacted, and it's not good. But the impact on children is far more serious. One of the other things that we know from a variety of studies about early childhood exposures to some of these toxins in indoor air quality is that exposure to hazardous pollutants has been linked to significant reductions in what we call forced expiratory volume in 1 second, FEV1, by age 18, meaning that we could be setting children up to have lifelong less lung capacity than they would have had they not been exposed to these pollutants. One of the things that we talk about a lot besides asthma, and some of the short-term health effects that children suffer from indoor air quality is, of course, allergies, but they can have gastrointestinal issues as well. I mean, depending on what's in the air, it can cause diarrhea. It can cause them other things like skin irritations, eye irritation, fatigue. Irritability. And I know, even as an adult, when I'm in a room where I can tell the air quality is not good, it can make you irritable, even if you came in a joyful mood. It can give kids headaches. It can make them cough, sneeze, make their eyes water so that their vision is impaired. So these are really uncomfortable to put it mildly. These are short-term effects. Let's talk about some of the chronic effects because these are things that can be ongoing throughout their childhood and beyond. Some of the things we know is that, especially with high CO2 levels, because kids may not recognize what it's doing to their bodies or have the words to describe to their teacher, hey, I'm having trouble breathing here, it can cause them anxiety because all of a sudden, when these CO2 levels rise and it displaces the oxygen in the room, that makes the body labor harder to get the oxygen that it needs. And that can be anxiety producing. We also know that poor indoor air quality can cause behavior problems. That's not conducive to learning. There are certain chemicals that can cause depression. There's a real mental health aspect to this. And depending on what's in the air, like for instance, lead paint was used in schools up till the mid 70s. And just because you paint over it doesn't mean that there's not a problem. As the lead decomposes, for lack of a better word, but kind of disseminates into the air, it can actually cause lower IQ, organ damage to the brain and kidneys and other things. It can cause taking these things home with them. They're going to be dealing with them over the course of a long period of time and not just while they're at school. So that means they don't get a break. They go home, they go outside, and some of these, health components are still going to be with them and still going to be impacting them. So there are also long-term health effects, and I think this is very important for us to understand. And I got to preview this for you and say some of these long-term health effects associated with poor indoor air quality may not show up until adulthood. And the problem with that, of course, is that we may say, well, that person's cancer, that person's neurological disorder, that person's mesothelioma wasn't linked to school. But in fact, the research shows that it very well could be. So let's talk about some of those long-term health impacts that children may be exposed to. First of all, there's a cardiac implication for a lot of the contaminants that we find in indoor air quality. As I mentioned, high CO2 levels, of course, can cause at the moment high heart rate to impact a child, tachycardia. But there are other chemicals that can be involved in indoor air quality that can actually do damage to the cardiovascular system. Lung cancer is also something that children who are exposed to radon maybe actually studies show at a threefold higher rate than adults exposed to the same amount of radon in terms of their potential to develop lung cancer. Um, there are other cancers associated with contaminants in indoor air quality. Thyroid cancer and mesothelioma are linked to exposures um, to asbestos, especially. We know that PFAS can be part of the indoor air in schools, and that has been linked to certain kinds of cancers, especially thyroid cancer as well. But the CDC has some reports out, and they have evidence that testicular, breast, and bladder cancer from certain toxins and certain volatile or organic compounds um, found in schools can lead to testicular, breast, and bladder cancer as well. There are numerous studies that show that neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's may be linked to childhood lead exposure, and that this can lead to adult degenerative diseases through cardiovascular or kidney conditions that develop prematurely. So all of these, long-term health impacts that are associated with things that if we, are not keeping them out of the indoor air quality in schools can cause children long-term harm. I want to pivot now to from health to talking about cognitive ability because this is why we send kids to school. We send them there to learn. But poor indoor air quality can diminish their ability to learn. There was a study that was done, let's see, I believe it was in 2010, but it was of 100 schools in the United States. And they found that classroom ventilation rates were directly associated with students' academic achievements. And they actually could show increases pretty substantial increases in math and reading standardized test scores, double-digit increases between classrooms where there was poor indoor air quality and classrooms when the air quality was improved. And so it's not just temperature and humidity, though those do definitely diminish concentration and memory and alertness. But one of the things that we also have seen is that low concentrations of lead in a child's blood can be linked to attention disorders like and they can contribute to symptoms of ADHD, especially hyperactivity and impulsivity. Lead exposure in schools is just it has a myriad of impacts on the body and on fatigue and there are concentration difficulties associated with carbon dioxide, which we talked about before. But there's also particulate matter that can make it into a school from the outside that can cause some real concentration and cognitive problems. One of the other things that we've got to remember is that, when the school environment causes a child to be sick, whether it's an asthma attack, severe allergies, some of the viruses and bacterial contamination that can cause them to miss school. School absences are one of the biggest contributors to low academic or decreased academic performance. And again, if we can prevent that, if we can make the indoor air quality in a school environment such that kids aren't missing school due to illnesses they are contracting or chronic health issues that are exacerbated at school, one of the things that we know is that school absences lead to a tougher time staying on grade level. And this is particularly true of little kids. So we know, and studies have shown this for years, that children who do not read on grade level by third grade are far more likely to drop out of high school and to have lower lifelong outcomes due to lower academic performance. So, anything that we can be doing to address the causes of that, indoor air quality being a major one, it's not just the child that wins, it's our entire society that's winning because our children are achieving their greatest potential and academic success. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we are going to be talking about what school districts can do about this. I've just laid out the problem. We're going to talk about the solutions, and we're also going to talk about what my organization and the National School Boards Association will be doing to help school districts in just a moment. So don't go away. There's more Go Green Radio right after this. Welcome back to Go Green Radio, everybody. Okay, are you breathless? I'm breathless because we just spent the last two segments talking about the problem with indoor air quality in schools and why it's so important to address these issues, how it impacts the individual child, not just while they're at school, but for the rest of their lives in many cases. And so now let's talk about what school districts can do about it. And I want to take you, if you want to open up a new tab in your web browser while you're listening to us, I want to take you to the EPA's site on all of the tools that they have been developing over the past few decades. So join me at www.epa.gov/IAQ dash schools. And if you go there, you're going to see a lot of things that we'll talk about in a minute. So don't get carried away. I want you to keep listening. I've still got things to tell you that are outside of this. But we're going to talk about, first of all, what a school district needs to do first when they decide we need to address indoor air quality, either because they know they have a problem or because they're not sure if they have a problem. And because now they know that it's such an important issue to address that they're going to dive in to the deep end of the pool and figure out how to make sure that the indoor air quality that their students are breathing, and oh, by the way, their adult workforce is breathing, is healthy. So the first thing that the Go Green Initiative recommends is that you put together a district green team. One of the chief factors that I have seen over the last 23 years of working with school districts that causes them to fail in properly addressing whether it's indoor air quality or any number of sustainability issues is not having the right people at the table. One of the most common mistakes I see school districts make is that they will appoint somebody who's really passionate about the issue to kumbaya us through the process of addressing these issues. That is inadequate. What you need is somebody who is a very good program manager, someone who's highly organized, someone who's high up enough in the school district's chain of command to be able to convene interdepartmental meetings and to impact and influence a variety of functions of the school district. And so when the Go Green Initiative goes in and we work with a school district, we ask them to put together a district team that is interdepartmental and chaired by somebody in the school business office, if not the school business officer themselves, because money is going to be involved, human resources is going to be involved, there may be contracts, there may be vendors. And if the school business office is not involved at the giddy up, there is a very good possibility, and I've seen it happen many times, that whoever is passionate and trying to lead the school district down the primrose path of dealing with indoor air quality is going to get out over their skis and start trying to impact school contracts, school job descriptions for various people within the organization, and it's going to cause a big mess, if not a labor dispute. So that is first and foremost. Form a district green team that has all the right people around the table. And we have more guidance for that on our website, gogreeninitiative.org. The next thing we're going to ask school districts to do is to develop a school board policy. One of the other chief mistakes that I've seen school districts make over the years is to find somebody really passionate to come up with a program, and as soon as they transfer to another school district, retire, matriculate, whatever, the program goes away. That shouldn't happen with an issue like indoor air quality. It needs to be institutionalized. And the way to do that is for the school board to enact policy directing the school district staff to work on indoor air quality management. Again, I've got some resources for you, and we're going to have more resources as we roll out this grant program that I told you about. We got this grant from EPA. But school board policy is a must. And for school boards at the local level, I will say this. If you are not a part of your state association of school boards, you might be missing out on a really helpful tool. Oftentimes, your state association is going to hire lawyers to develop policy language that you can enact on a variety of issues at the local school board level that is matched to your state laws, matched to your state education code. So I'm a big believer in utilizing those state school board associations for help in policy language. We are also big believers in baseline assessments, figuring out what's going on before you go in and try to fix things. You may be using the wrong tools, you may be using the wrong approach if you don't conduct some baseline assessments. And one of the things that I think is brilliant and really well done on the EPA's website is a list of checklists of walkthroughs that your school district green team members can divvy up and take care of, go through and do these checklists to eyeball some of the areas in your school district where indoor air quality contaminants may be entering. And by doing this, I'll give you, for instance, I worked with one school district that had a brand new building. Everything was state of the art. But the teachers and the students, even the custodians, were getting asthma attacks, crazy allergies. People were calling in sick. It was awful. And they were flummoxed because the HVAC system was working like it was supposed to. Everything was, working as designed, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And I gave them these checklists. We did a walk around in different parts of the school district. Then we did a walk around the outside perimeter to look at where the air intake vent to the building was. And underneath it, they had planted a beautiful garden. And that beautiful garden was full of flowers that are high in pollen. And I was like, I wonder what would happen if we moved the garden away from the air intake ventilation. They did, and guess what? The building was functioning much better and the occupants were much healthier. And so sometimes it doesn't take a lot of money. It just takes walking through your systems and your buildings with a preventative lens on to keep contaminants out of your schools. So baseline assessments are a must. It really will help you not waste your time on things that aren't a problem and help you pinpoint the things that are a problem and go after them. After you do these baseline assessments, school districts will develop an indoor air quality management plan based on their findings. That's the way to go. And here's the great news. You don't have to make it up. You don't have to make up your own dance moves when they're in the middle of the dance floor, folks, because the EPA has a model template for a model indoor air quality management plan on their website. And again, no need for you to make it up from scratch because it's very well thought out. It's very well designed. And again, the Go Green Initiative can help you with that. And finally, once you have your plan, enact it. That's the last and very most important step is to enact that plan. And part of that plan is going to include training everybody on how the plan works, communicating throughout the school district and with the community about what we're doing and why. And then two biggies. We want to monitor our plan. Is it working? If we noticed that there was a potential for mold because we found a leak. Did we fix that leak? And is it working? Is it dry now? Those kinds of things. And then one of the things that we're going to be asking school districts that we're working with to do is to create a very simple report after a whole school year of enacting their plan. What's the so what? Did your rate of absenteeism go down? Did you, rectify the problems that you found during the baseline assessments? Did anything happen with academic performance? And that can take several years to assess. But we're going to look at a few key metrics, especially rates of absenteeism, and see did we do something that mattered? And I promise you, the answer is going to be yes. But when you see the numbers, it's always very exciting. And that's something that you want to report, that success to the community. So that's kind of in a nutshell, and a very quick overview of the steps that school districts can take. And again, a lot of these steps are very well outlined on the EPA's website, which is epa.gov/IAQ-schools. Now, I want to spend a few minutes talking about what the Go Green Initiative is going to be doing thanks to this grant that we got from EPA. We were one of 5 organizations nationwide that were recipients of a grant that, as I mentioned in the beginning segment, it was a historic investment in improving indoor air quality with schools. So part of this grant, a big part of it is pass-through funding that we're going to be providing to school districts in cohorts. Every year, we're going to be choosing cohorts of school districts throughout the country to get very intense technical assistance and grant dollars to address indoor air quality. Right now, as we sit and do this live show, it's April 18th, 2025. On May 15th of this year, the application to be a part of our first cohort is going to close. That application can be found on the NSBA, National School Boards Association website. Um, and we are looking for school districts in each of the 10 EPA regions across the country. Our intent is to choose one school district per EPA region per year for the next 5 years. And so those cohorts are going to receive on the ground, in person, assistance with doing their baseline assessments, developing their school board policies, developing their indoor air quality management plans. My staff will act as almost like a full-time equivalent on their staff to help walk them through these steps that I just mentioned. We're also going to help you with the program management tools. Yes, we love spreadsheets. We're going to do it with the program management and the internal discussions, meetings, and trainings that need to happen at the school district and school site levels to ensure that not only is our indoor air quality management plan comprehensive, but it's also able to be carried out at each school site within the district. So we're going to be announcing the first cohort in June of this year. We're going to start onboarding them over the summer, and boots on the ground hit right when school starts in September. And so we're very excited about these cohorts. But that is not the only thing that we're going to be offering. In as much as we'll be offering training for those cohort districts, we are creating an online academy of all the same training, all the same program management tools, everything that we'll be providing the cohorts, we're going to be providing online so that any school district anywhere will be able to get a hold of these materials and do it themselves or reach out to us for a little bit of assistance, a little guiding, help. We're going to be doing that very soon. We're going to be posting the first iteration of our online training in the next couple of months. This is going to be available for free. Always and everywhere. We believe that these tools and these tactics should be something that every school district should get a hold of. And so when we put them up online, we're gonna talk about it a lot. We're gonna make sure we disseminate it so that every school district can get a hold of this online training. We're also going to be hosting monthly webinars. And if you're thinking, how do I stay up to date on this? Do I have to listen to Go Green Radio every week? No, because we'll be covering other things on Go Green Radio. If you want to stay up to date on this, here's the number one best way. Get out on our website, gogreeninitiative.org. Gogreeninitiative.org. Scroll down to the bottom of the page. Follow us on social media. All of our socials are there, and sign up for our newsletter. It won't cost you a dime. If you do that, you are going to get the latest, greatest news on all of these offerings as soon as they come in. So check us out. I've got more that I want to tell you. That's only the tip of the iceberg, folks. There's more that we're going to talk about in the next segment. But we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk to you about some more opportunities that we have for school districts as a result of this grant. So don't go away. More Go Green Radio right after this. Welcome back to Go Green Radio. So much going on here today. We're talking about indoor air quality in schools. And here's the great thing. Thanks to this EPA grant that my organization, got this past year, we're not just talking about the problem. We're talking about the solution, and we're actually talking now in this segment and a little bit in the last segment about ways that your school district can plug in to some opportunities that we are able to provide now thanks to Congress's historic first time ever investment at this level to help school districts really do something important to improve indoor air quality and thus improve children's health, improve their cognitive ability and ability to learn while they're at school. So if you couldn't tell already, I'm pretty excited about this stuff. This is what we've got going on. So, in the last segment, I told you about some intensive technical assistance that we're going to be providing to school districts across America. I also talked to you about an upcoming online, on demand academy of training that we're going to be building and providing just in the next couple of months. That's coming. I talked to you about monthly webinars that we're hosting on this topic that we also record and keep it up on our YouTube channel. So if you have to miss one, you don't have to come live. You can check it out anytime you want to. And I mentioned that if you want to stay up to date on this and make sure that you don't miss a thing, that you are aware of all the opportunities, go to our website, gogreeninitiative.org, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and follow us on all of our socials. And maybe even most importantly, sign up for our newsletter. And that is where you will always get the latest updates on what we're doing. So don't fail to do that because that's where you're going to make sure you don't miss any of these opportunities. There are some other opportunities that I'm very excited about. And again, I have to thank the National School Boards Association. They are the best partner in the world. When I called them and said, hey, there's this grant opportunity, I think that together we would be able to address this very powerfully together. And they were like, sure. They've had some ideas that I would have never considered. One of those is featuring a lengthy article, a very in-depth article, science-based, research-based articles in every one of their magazine editions for the next 5 years. They have a magazine called the American School Board Journal, and this journal actually has been going on for decades. I mean, I'm trying to remember now. I mean, it's been like a generation at least, maybe more. And we've already done two articles in the last two quarter editions of the American School Board Journal. And you might be thinking, well, what if I can't afford to subscribe? I got news for you. You don't have to, although I highly recommend it because it's a good piece of journalism to hold in your hand. But if you want to check it out online, you can find that at their website. So if you go to nsba.org, you can find all of the articles from the American School Board Journal on their website, to include the two that we've contributed. But I also want to talk to you guys about the Magna Awards. This is a big deal. And in fact, we've got an upcoming webinar on it. NSBA has been giving out Magna Awards for 30 years. It's highly prestigious. It recognizes school districts who are innovating, who are doing creative, incredible programs to make life better and learning better for their students. And for the next 5 years, they have dedicated the Magna Awards to school districts that are doing all they can to improve indoor air quality. And that is something that has never been done before. And so if you want to find out more about that, again, go to our website, gogreeninitiative.org, scroll down to the bottom, follow us on our socials, sign up for our newsletter. You'll get all the information. But I am so excited to be partnered with NSBA and to work with school districts towards earning those Magna Awards every year, based on their work to make sure that the air that their children and all of their staff are breathing is healthy and conducive to learning. So, one of the last things that I kind of want to talk about is something that you'll find in a previous segment. I had you go to epa.gov/IAQ schools. This is a brilliant uh, set of tools, resources, guides for school districts to address indoor air quality for schools. And I want to kind of walk you through what you're going to see there because it can feel a little bit intimidating. I'll be honest. When you first go on there, it feels like, wow, there's a lot of information here. But let me break it down for you just a little bit. If you scroll down, there's a whole section on, it's called, this is the header, Learn About IAQ in Schools. And one of the things that it has in that section is actually information for parents and students. It's not just for the school district, but for all the stakeholder communities, so that you can understand why we care so much about indoor air quality in schools and why it's so important for everybody who touches a school to understand how we can take actions to improve indoor air quality in schools. But I'm also talking to our listeners who may be in the position of being the first person in their school district to bring this up, the first person to say to the superintendent, to the school board, to a principal, hey, I think we ought to address indoor air quality in our school district. You need to feel knowledgeable. You need to feel empowered to talk about this issue with enough credibility that you can convince others to get on board with this. This is the section on the Indoor Air Quality Tools for Schools website that EPA has where you can make yourself smart, where you can put together your thoughts about how to present this to others. The next section on this website is called IAQ Tools for Schools Resources. Gold mine alert. This is incredible. There's four little bullets underneath this heading, and you could get lost for days. I'm gonna be honest, you get lost for days in this information. One of the things that we'll be doing with our online academy is kind of leading you through this in a logical manner, but don't be afraid to get lost in this because you are going to learn so much. The IAQ Tools for Schools, like I said, has been around for decades. The EPA keeps improving it, keeps updating it, and it is fantastic. The next section that you're going to see is on-demand training webinars. And these are phenomenal. We'll be using a lot of these training webinars as source materials for some of the training that we'll be doing, some of the toolkits that we'll be providing to schools to break it down and make it easy. But if you like to learn through videos, this is the place for you. There's not a stone that is not unturned. Everything is revealed in these webinars. The next section that you're going to hit is something that I alluded to in the first two segments of this radio show. And I think, I mean, literally, you could earn a PhD in this, and nobody's going to come out of this radio show episode with a PhD. I really just hit the wave tops. But this section is called Understanding IAQ Benefits, and it talks about the why. Why do we care about this? Why is it good for students? Why is it good for schools in general? What are the benefits associated with clean, healthy indoor air quality? Then there's a section called Healthy School Renovations. And if your school district is blessed to have some dollars to either renovate some of your older schools or if you're designing new ones, if you're building new schools, this is where you want to go. These are the tools for you because they actually have some design tools for schools. And, I know you're going to be hiring architects to help you with this, but this is where your architects take a lot of cues from the school district. What do you want? What do you need? This is where you can get a lot of those checklists to help guide the architectural process. And the final section on this particular page that you'll see is called Connecting and Networking. Highly recommend. You don't need to feel alone. Your school district doesn't need to feel alone. You need to know that there are thousands of school districts doing this work and that you can connect with them and share best practices and share final notes with them and learn together and be a community. We're just about ready to wrap up this episode, but I want to say a few things. School districts are under incredible pressure right now. They are constantly under budget pressure, constantly working to retain teachers. And I couldn't be more sympathetic to their plight. But I'll tell you this, indoor air quality is something that the whole community should get behind and help their school districts afford. It takes staffing, it takes bond dollars, it takes involvement. And I'm asking every one of my listeners that when your school district is going out for a bond, if your school district is asking for a parcel tax, if they're uh, asking for help with indoor air quality management, please say yes, get involved and help your school district have the resources that it needs because our children will be healthier, not just now, but for their whole lives if they're not exposed to indoor air quality contaminants. And they're going to learn better and they're going to achieve more, which is good for all of us. That's the whole idea of our public education system. So please, um, support your local school districts in this endeavor. As always, we're going to be here, same time, same place next week with more Go Green Radio. We cover all kinds of topics, not just this one, but thank you for joining us today. We'll talk to you next week. Until then, have a wonderful week and do something in your